Welcome everyone to Educator Plays, and we're going over the Civ VII patch notes that have just been introduced. My doggies say hi. He gets really excited, so he's excited for the update as well. Hi buddies, hey buddies. Alright, so we're getting into update 1.1.1. There's been a lot of talk about this update, about the things that are in this update, so I'm really excited. So this is just their open letter. I'm not going to read this. Let's get into the featured spotlight. We now have quick move. I got a chance to use this yesterday. It's pretty good. I know, like, if you have a high resolution monitor, maybe the looks aren't for you. But in terms of playability, I play this on the Steam Deck. I play this on the PC. I just like the faster options. I'm not using the most optimized computer setup, so this really helps the kind of the graphics interface and the speed and the general quality of my gameplay experience. So if you're like me and you're not running the most ideal setup, I think this is a huge quality of life improvement. A lot of people complain about featured spotlight. This has been a standard for every Civilization game in memory. In fact, before these fluid animations come up, if you go back and play something like Civilization 2 or Alpha Centauri, this is just the default, right? The quick move setting. Yeah, I recommend turning it on if you have a lower powered system like myself. A lot of times the movements is really what bogs the game down. Map generation. This is another one that's been requested since the game started. So now the default option of map generation in terms of balance is called standard. So this is the unbalanced version where starts are going to be less predictable, similar to Civ VI, in most civilizations really. The existing start position method is now called balanced. Okay, so that's the one that we've been getting. So we're probably going to experiment with this during my stream, so if you want to check those out. And if you like this content, please give me a like and subscribe. I want to just start making more content, but I need to see if people actually like these things. So please, if you like this, like and subscribe. But there's going to be more variety of map generation. Now, I haven't made it much of a secret in my plays that I tend to like Fractal the most because it gives the most varied map generation. And then my dogs are saying hi. But I'm going to experiment a little bit more. I usually play on Continents Plus, which is like kind of the default method, or Fractal. I do like Terra Incogna, if that's the correct pronunciation a bit, because then you get your new world is a little bit varied. And sometimes I've had it where the deity AI get really powerful on a Continents Plus map because one AI tends to dominate over all the others, which is something I kind of want in my games anyways. So again, that's another argument for Continents Plus over Fractal or Terra Incogna. So yeah, and then Settler and Commander renaming. This is nice. This is a nice quality of life. You probably won't see it too much in my games unless people really request it. But then that's something I might change. But I really like going for the historical names of cities and just kind of seeing how that evolves and seeing how my civilization looks over time. It's like, okay, where did I change my capital? And what all those look like. UI improvements, they're polishing up the UI. Some things like the flag. I think the borders might be a little bit too thick. But in general, this didn't bother me that much. I can see how, like, on a bigger resolution setting, it could be harder to see. One thing I did notice is that the resources are grayed out now when you're in the fog of war, or when they're in the fog of war. So it's a little bit off-putting because I'm used to seeing those colorful resources on my map, but I think it's fine. I noticed for higher resolutions, the icons for resources are very, very, very small. So that's something I think they'll fix in the future. Improve plot tool tips. I haven't checked these. How many specialists are assigned or still possible to assign? That's going to be very useful. But usually you learn when you're going to place a specialist anyways, you kind of know if they're already full. So this is only for those major city planners. And really, if you're trying to city plan, the biggest thing that the game could improve outside of the tooltips is just adding tax, adding the symbols that you can do for your planning. Like, okay, I know this is going to be my library / production building, my science / production buildings. I know this is going to be my happiness and culture buildings, and I know this is going to be my food and my money buildings. So I think those are more important for city planning than advanced tooltips. But if you're just getting into the game, I can see where that'd be very useful, and you want those tooltips. District under attack notification. I can't tell you how many times I've had it where one of my settlements is literally under attack, and I find it in the red, and there's a unit there, and I was like, I just had wish I had an alert for that because I was busy managing the civilization before that. So yeah, that's a big one. So new district under attack notification. So hopefully they'll be alerting you more frequently. New trade lens and ability to send merchant from lens. Honestly, that's a big quality of life improvement. That was one of my biggest grievances, was you had to physically move the merchant to the location before you could start trading until modern age, where you just got that. So, and a trade lens where you can see where you can trade with, all those things are very, very helpful. And it didn't make sense because the trader had to move there physically anyways, so why not just let the trader start trading from where it's going. Age progress now shows turns remaining until crises. Okay, that's very interesting. I think that's really helpful because it shows where the crises happen and at what percentages. But I think it's really hard to predict still, because what happens when you advance the age through various means. So I wonder when that's going to really get adjusted. I'm very curious to see that one in action. But no more surprise crises, as it says. There's pips to show you when the triggers will escalate. But usually it's been at 70, 80, 90%. That's usually when I notice them advancing. So this just came up in one of my recent games, the restart button. So re-rollers rejoice. We've added a new restart button. So we're fishing for the best start because I wanted to make a cheeky Han Confucius Great Wall build, and we ended up making some poor decisions, getting to an alliance we shouldn't have with Machiavelli. The irony does not surprise me in that, but yeah, we had to restart a few times, and having the restart button would have just made that experience a lot more fluid, because we're just fishing for a nice flat area where we could build a big Great Wall. So this is nice. This is a very pleasant change. It does not work when you go through an age transition or during network multiplayer games, but I think that's fair. Alright, so we have a new natural wonder, the Mount Everest. +2 happiness, +2 influence, +2 culture, and reveals all mountain tiles on your continent when discovered. So I think Pachacudi would be happy about that one, and then the Pachacudi restarts, things like that. And then we're going to get into some new features, modern age pacing and balance. They made another number of changes to help modern age last a bit longer, so players have more space to enjoy all the unique gameplay in that age. Eliminating a player no longer adds age progress in modern, and the amount of age progress added in exploration has been halved so that domination victories are easier to achieve now. Yeah, this was a big problem, like you just win by score. In the modern age, if you're doing the domination thing, I haven't run into the issue because I don't tend to do domination to eliminate the AI. I do it to get the victory point. So I'm usually just very careful and intentional about which cities I take. Modern tech and civic costs have increased roughly 25%, weighted to the nodes deeper in trees. This one's interesting. I don't know how much I like it because it does delay the slower bits of modern age a bit. It also is a kind of buff to the Maya, but they got nerfed, so this might be fine overall. We'll talk about the Maya nerf in a second. And this kind of goes into the same thing of something I don't like about the modern age. We've made a number of changes to Railroad Tycoon gameplay. Potato Mid Whiskey kind of talks about this better, how it's a linear increase to a quadratic problem. Factory costs increase from 600 to 1400. Port costs increase from 550 to 1200. Rail station costs increase from 650 to 1200. Now, I think so. One of my ideas thinking about this is instead of especially for factories, maybe not so much for port and rail, that could be delayed a bit, but I think for factories is doing something similar to, and this is like kind of unheard of in building, so maybe you wouldn't do this, but in Civ 6, over time, the cost of production for districts would increase based off of text research and etc. etc. What if you did that for these buildings? Some kind of increase, like you could do it where the more you build, the more expensive they get. I wouldn't do it a lot, but I think that that would help slow down, because all this really does is just delay. It just delays the activation of your victory type, and it doesn't even really impact the AI that much. So this just slows you down as a player, so you can artificially play longer in Modern Age. And I kind of enjoyed that Modern Age wasn't as long, because it felt like the reward for setting up your build. But I get that you want Modern Age to kind of feel like a proper age versus just the race to the victory after playing in Antiquity and Exploration. Coal resources change from 100% production bonus towards rail stations to 10% production towards rail stations and ports. So it's added ports, and the existing 100% was not functioning as intended. Yeah, I noticed that. It's like as many of the coal as I had, it never seemed to do anything towards rail stations. Oil, this is very big, now also gives 10% production bonus towards factories. Okay, that's very important. So that should offset some of the increased costs of the factory, the port, the rail station. Okay. Military advisor will not warn you if you don't have enough commanders. Honestly, this is something I didn't even know was a thing, that you had to have enough commanders to house your units. I think you don't need your units packed in the commanders as the age ends, because I noticed they come pre-packed in the next age. It does explain some of my domination victories, though, because I started with so many units, and I was just printing commanders into the next stage. So yeah, I think just having that that warning will really help, because I didn't even know that was a thing. Hey, doggies. Map generation has been improved, and players can now choose between 2 start position options. Okay, that we already talked about that. All right, leaders. Ashoka, World Conqueror. His ability has changed from plus 10 against fortified districts during celebrations to plus 5 against fortified districts during celebrations. Confucius, he now correctly unlocks the Qing in the modern age. I haven't run into this bug, but that would have been a bummer if that had been true. Lafayette, so he's gotten a bit of a nerf. Plus 1 combat strength per tradition slotted is no longer doubled in distant lands. That's fine. I think that was really powerful. So Yeah, maybe it's a bit of a nerf, but honestly, like if you're playing as the Normans, you're already getting a lot of strength and value out of that. You go Romans into Normans as Lafayette. It's really powerful, and it was one of my playthroughs that you can find on this channel. They also changed from +2 culture and happiness per age in settlements, doubled in distant lands, to +1 culture and happiness per age in settlements, doubled in distant lands. Yeah, that'll make it so he can't go that far over the cap, and he's still that's still gonna put him in like a comfortable position for culture, I think. So the more settlements he has, is still the better. Civs Buganda Nyanza Civic now applies to full hex buildings, e.g. the aerodrome. Okay, that's a nice change. For Crossroads DLC, Carthage, the bonus combat strength now correctly it gains +1 per unique resource slotted in the capital. It was just per resource, even though the text didn't say that, so that's a good change. Hawaii, Ahupua's tradition changed from +4 culture on food buildings to +4 food on culture buildings. That's a big change. That's an enormous change. There's more food buildings. So yeah, culture was really strong in Hawaii, overly so. Like it would be too much quadratic scaling. So where you just run away with culture. So I get the change. Food, like this is such a gigantic nerf. Like you're gonna be getting culture buildings anyways, but oof, man, I don't like how much. Like you could even just change it to +2 culture on food buildings or +1 culture on food buildings. But yeah, I feel like that tradition just isn't really worth taking anymore. Like it's not even worth going for. Like +4 food. Yeah, I like food. I'm not one of those people who, or one of those content creators who like hates food. I'm gonna play a food focused Civ soon, and we'll have fun with that. But actually, there is a change I kind of find interesting. So the Hokupu tradition now changed from 2 to 1 culture on marine terrain. Okay. That's a nerf, but it's also like understandable because there's a lot of, if you're playing as Hawaii and you're gonna have a lot of marine terrains, that was just, you had so much culture. You just ran away with culture. He'enalu civic mastery changed from +1 culture on marine terrain and settlements following your religion to +1 happiness on marine terrains in towns following your religion, doubled for cities. This is a stealth buff to one of my favorite leaders. I'm gonna play a stream that features this leader, so look forward to that. Yeah, +1 culture on marine settlements. That's a bummer because that was really good. I really liked that, but +1 happiness is also pretty. It actually makes Hawaii want to be an expansionist civ. So that's going to be really helpful for a lot of military focused leaders. I think this is a very interesting change, and I think it's going to change the way Hawaii is played rather significantly. So in general, I think the happiness is good. I think that's huge. I think that's that's going to buff some play styles for some leaders. If you know, you know. Crossroads, Great Britain, Crossroads DLC. No Eternal Allies tradition changed for +5 gold in towns, but -5% gold, +5% gold in towns, but -5% gold in capital for every alliance. And it's been changed to 10% food and gold in towns, but -5% gold in the capital for every alliance. Okay, that's fair. Capitals tend to not make the most money anyways, unless you have a lot of buildings. So I think this is a huge buff to Great Britain. Very cool. Very cool. No eternal allies. Interesting. I hope they fix the bug where you can't unlock them in exploration, even if you unlock them, because I really want to play as Great Britain as some other, like from a Carthage build, which is another thing I'd wanna play through. Majapahit, Majapahit. The Subak tradition changed from +1 culture and production on marine terrain to +1 culture and production on marine terrain in cities. Okay, it's a bit of a buff, or a bit of a nerf, but that's fine. Gamelan Civic changed from +4 culture and quarters to +2 culture and quarters. Okay, also a bit of a nerf, but I get it. Majapahit were very powerful in modern age. Nusantara Civic changed from culture buildings receive +1 culture adjacency with coast to culture buildings receive a +1 happiness adjacency with coast. Okay, that's fine. I think happiness is one of those yields that that can be pretty good, especially if you want to make more settlements. And more settlements is more gold for the Majapahit, so this can really help you out there, especially like for happiness in your cities. And also interesting that if you're playing as Augustus, that's going to be a huge boon for Augustus as the Majapahit. Here's the big Maya nerf. Uwebil Ka'u quarter production gained change from 15% to 5% of technology research. 60% or 66% decrease in their functionality. I think it's still going to be strong, but I don't think it's going to be busted. I kind of think maybe that's too much, but I need to play test this. I need to play test how that feels. 5% is still a lot, especially for the cost of technology in later ages. So that's still going to feel really good going into exploration and modern, especially with the increased technology cost in modern and civic cost. The Ku'una changed from +4 to +3. That's fine. That was really good anyways, but one science isn't going to hurt anything. And Mundo Perdido now unlocks earlier. Okay, I rarely ever build that, so maybe that'll actually build it now. Meiji Japan, the Goishin the Goishin unique ability now correctly applies a science bonus when overbuilding. Oh, okay. I didn't know that was not working. Kokutai tradition now correctly applies to all aircraft units. That's very nice. Mississippian tradition, the shell-tempered pottery now applies correctly outside of Antiquity Age. You know, honestly, that's actually one of the civs I haven't played yet. I really want to play them. So maybe that's, again, down the road. Mongolia, this is a nerf. +5 combat strength for cavalry units changed to +3 combat strength from their tradition. That was so good. That was so very good. I played a Harriet Tubman run, and we slotted that tradition and the Persia tradition, and it's just like, okay. So, good luck. Good luck, AI. You're not going to last. All right, Rome. Now, this is a huge nerf. The Legion unit changed from +2 combat strength for every tradition in the government to +1 combat strength for every tradition in the government. I don't feel like that's necessary. It's like they didn't feel that overpowered compared to the other civs. Like Rome is still one of the best civs. Now they're probably still pretty good. But this just feels too strong because you're kind of taking a bit of an opportunity cost slotting in traditions to your government, especially if they're not very good for what you want to be doing. Like, why would I take the 25% culture for producing infantry units over some of the other traditions you can get in the civic tree in antiquity? unless it got me like +2 combat strength on my legions. That's why you put it there. It's like, okay, well, this is to boost my legions more than it is to boost my government. So nerfing it half, I feel like that's a bit too much. I understand the idea behind it because Rome was already really good, but then changing this next tradition also, the nerfing it by half, plus 10% food golden culture in towns, with a specialization changed to +5 food golden culture in towns without a growing focus, which is the same thing. But anyways, yeah, that feels bad. That feels bad. That's a bummer. I mean, that was a fun tradition to take, and it worked really well with with what Rome wants to be doing, anyways. So yeah, it feels a little bit bad. Rome feels like it took a major hit. Now Greece is probably a bit stronger, but Greece is more RNG dependent on city states. So, that maybe that's just a way to keep it on par with Greece. But I think Greece can now take it, but in Greece's abilities, they synergize really well with what Greece wants to be doing. Now Rome's just feel like they don't, like you're taking a bit of an opportunity cost slotting a tradition into the government over some of the other policies. So you did that because, well, okay, the Legion gets that. You almost get eight combat strength from your Legion if you just slot in your traditions. That's interesting. I'll have to see how it plays out. I don't think Rome needed that. I think having Rome traditionally be strong is just fine. I never felt like I was being overly dominated in antiquity, but maybe this is because of the combat changes we'll talk about in a second. Songhai. The High Koi Civic no longer grants a bonus to units that are not on a navigable river. Okay, good. All right, we're going to go through the gameplay and some of the UI changes. And up to miscellaneous. We're not going to talk about console, so we're just going to go finish these patch notes real quick. So gameplay, AI scouting and settlement behavior is now improved. They cluster more, so they're going to be less forward settling. That's going to feel great, and it's probably going to make them a bit stronger. AI commanders will now correctly gain XP bonus based on difficulty. I didn't realize this was happening, but it makes sense. And they're going to make better commander promotion choices. Prioritizing bonuses like increased combat strength. That's scary. So if you're used to getting attacked by the deity AI, you're going to have to really, in deity, make sure you're investing in units for defense. It is still easier to defend, but you can easily get overwhelmed if you're not prepared. Economy. Towns with a trade post focus now grant +5 range to all your other settlements and not just from themselves. Very nice, very nice. This will make trade, I feel less bad, I think. Makes it easier to build roads, good, to your cities with your merchants. This is something you needed to do if you needed to connect cities and towns. Sawmills now properly grant production to camps. Okay, I wasn't aware that wasn't working, so that's nice. Grocers no longer grant food bonuses on mines and woodcutters. Grocers always felt a bit weird in that regard. I was like, wondering what was going on there. Addressed a reported issue where ironwork was not granting production bonuses on mines and woodcutters. And also added +1 production on mountains. Very nice, like that. Repairs can no longer be purchased without having enough gold. I made these mistakes several times. It was very annoying. Players now correctly receive discounted prices when purchasing buildings that have been discounted. This I featured several times in my streams. This was really annoying. I'm really glad this change has been made because the posted discount, I would always go in the negative, and sometimes it was worth it, but this was very, very annoying. Purchases can no longer be made in a town with unrest. I think they fixed the bug. They'll mention it later, where your town was incorrectly slotted as in unrest. Resolved an issue where the fish resource was decreasing the amount of food needed for a settlement's next growth to negative. So I've always been saying fish are pretty good. I wonder if this was due to the bug. I wonder if that was really due to the bug, because I always felt like my cities were growing way too fast in some games. So hopefully that is a bit different. But I think fish are still going to be pretty powerful, because food for growth events is much lower in modern age anyways. The production queue properly updates when multiplayer or multiple wonders are in queue and another civilization completes a wonder first. Oh, very good. I hated losing out on production when that happened. Birsa now actually grants the walls on all eligible tiles. This always made me look at it a little bit. It's like, oh, I thought I was supposed to get walls. I'm not sure what's going on here. So yeah, now we'll actually get the walls. In diplomacy, the sabotage space program espionage action now completes as intended. Okay, I'm glad it does that. Crises. The revolution's crisis will now apply the correct amount of unhappiness after players choose a new revolutionary government. I wasn't aware that happiness wasn't getting hit. That's interesting. Okay. Military. Scorcher's policy changed from +5 for all units when attacking to +3 strength for all units when attacking. Okay. The Maria elephant units, the Purabetara units, now correctly gain +5 combat strength for fortified districts. That makes sense. I wondered why they felt a little bit underpowered. I'm actually going to play that game soon. The scout units no longer stack the +1 sight range bonus after unpacking from a commander with the initiative promotion. Despiffing Brit made a video abusing the heck out of this, and that was very fun to watch. I'm glad that's fixed. Natural Wonders, Taurus Del Pain, been nerfed, changed from units that move adjacent to Taurus Del Pain, ignore rough terrain, to +1 food and production on tundra terrain in this settlement. Okay. I do like adding yields to terrain, but yeah, okay. That's a bit of a nerf. I like but it might disrupt balance. Increase the spawn rate of Valley of Flowers. Yeah, I barely see it in my games. I barely ever see that wonder. 2-3 times maybe? Independent powers. Naval units can no longer disperse independent villages while a unit is defending the village. Good. This made it so hard to befriend AI independent town peoples in the distant lands, because the AI would just disperse them. This is such a nice change. The Emporium and Monastery units now stack yields correctly when multiples are built in a city. They used to have like this quadratic scaling that was just wild. Added and updated several entries to the Civilopedia. Very good. Really glad about that. Address issues. Resolved a reported issue that could occur when exiting to the main menu too quickly while creating a new game. Oh, very interesting. I didn't... Okay. Let's see. Some notifications about district under attack. Pact monitor, we talked about these. Notifications now properly play their animations at the start of a turn. Increase the speed at which notifications appear. Add an additional watch out notification to help with making treasure fleets. And when you're missing fishing key. Okay. Text changes, alignment and spacing with tutorials and pop-ups. Okay, so you'll notice these if you played before, but you won't notice it if you haven't played with those. Added some tooltips. Neutral relationship icon. Okay, interesting. Resource type is now displayed with both icons and tooltips, both in map and resource screen. We'll look at those later, or not later in this video, but I'll see how that plays out. Controller specific. I don't use a controller, but if you do, the pop-up espionage pop-ups now appear. So on Steam Deck, this was happening. I wasn't getting the pop-ups for espionage. Controller now responds correctly after opening progress menu. Okay. Trade lens will now change back to none when the user closes the trade lens. Yeah, that was annoying. Controller no longer loses focus on the city state bonus while menu unit is selected. Yeah, good. And can now properly select government choices. Yeah, that's very nice. We talked mostly about these changes. General, added crisis, hide turns until... Okay, this is big. Hide turns until growth UI when a town has a focus, and thus will not be growing. Good, very good. Pause menu will now be expanded and reorganized. Reported issue where the production panel will not refresh properly when purchasing in a settlement. Updated description for the change capital legacy card to more accurately reflect the functionality. Very good. Government selection screen now appears correctly on ultra-wide monitors. That I don't have an ultra-wide monitor. Settlement yields now correctly update on building placement menu instead of displaying the previously... Yes, thank you. The previously selected settlements yields, yeah. Army Commander progress bar now updates properly in the unit panel when gaining experience. Very good. Wondrous banner now appears properly. Privacy policy page now appears properly. Okay. Some advisor portraits. Learn more functions. Just a reported issue where buildings, wonders, and improvements did not display in the production menu. Yep, very good. That's preventing the player from placing anything other than units. Ugh, that's a nasty bug. Town unrest slider can no longer go negative. Good. Added unique icons for various great works. Oh, that's nice. Actually, I think that's big. I like having the unique icons. Okay, so maybe the codices will change. So I look forward to that. War awareness score now no longer falsely attributed to a different leader during war report or first meet. Good. Address a report issue where unit panel will be missing when the player selects and closes the unit panel multiple times. Also, they got rid of the city panel disappearing after exiting out of a city. That's really big. Theology Civic now correctly appears in the Choose Civic list after the player founds a religion. Okay, very nice. The Civilopedia, I think that's spelled out. Civilopedia. Okay. Entry for Prussia's unique infrastructure. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Now displays correctly. Staatseisenbahn. Yeah, I don't speak German. Xerxes banner has now been updated. More historically accurate icons. The Han Shi Dafu and Bing's Mandarin. Okay, very nice. Some changes in narrative events. You can read these on your own. A lot of times, like, you skip the narrative event. I like to read them occasionally, but yeah. And just some miscellaneous changes about, continue button now loads manual saves instead of the last auto save. That's big. That was always annoying. So you always had to go in and manually load your personal saves. That's a really good change. Crane animations, okay. More detailed vegetated tundra tiles, okay. I like details. Fixes made to terrain seams. Oh yeah, on AMD GPUs. Yep, that happens in my Steam Deck. Okay. And that's all I kind of really wanted to look at. There's the new leaders. We can look at these. Simon Bolivar. Very cool Colombian leader. Gran Colombia. Expansionist and militaristic. Gain a free amount of support. You gain 1 war support on all your wars. When you conquer a settlement for the first time, it can purchase a building for free. Very nice. And can purchase items when in the unrest status. That's actually really big. Cornerstone of freedom, his agenda. So he likes people who have less unhappiness, and he dislikes people who have more unhappiness in towns. Bulgaria has been added. Militaristic, expansionistic. This is for exploration age. They receive food in all towns when pillaging improvements. All towns. Oh, wow. Equal to the percentage of HP or yields gained. Oh, wow. Okay, that's really good. Wow, you're gonna wanna really be aggressive here. Okay, and they get a new monastery as their unique improvement, and Nepal in modern age. So diplomatic, cultural. Ooh, this is finally something that Pachacudi can go into for. Okay, so Pachacudi now has like a really good modern age Civ. They still need an antiquity age Civ, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of comes up. All warehouse buildings apply to mountain tiles, but they cost increased food and happiness. Ooh, that's really nice. I like that. I like that. Okay. Unique civilian unit, a unique scout. Okay, Sherpa. Okay, scouts in modern age. Okay, sure. I don't know what that's gonna do. And unique military unit, Gurkha infantry. Okay, infantry are fine. And a new wonder, the Bodhan Bodhanath. Bodhanath. Okay. Well, that was it for the Civ 1.1.1 patch. I hope you enjoy your upcoming games. I think this does a lot to fix what issues players have been having. And I think if you're going to play, it's a lot more playable from this point on. I think it was really playable before. Like I said, I've been enjoying myself. But there's just like these little tweaks that like just felt like they should be there already. And this patch has done so much to update that. So enjoy your games, enjoy everything you've been doing, and see you guys on stream.